Hi colleagues, I just want to explain a bit more behind today's headlines. In case you've been stuck in surgery all day, GPC England has tentatively agreed a deal for 25 and 26, but only if Wes Streeting writes to all of us, setting out his intention to go to Treasury to ask for funds to negotiate a wholesale new NHS GP practice contract within this Parliament, which he needs to do before the special conference on the 19th of March. Because that's what we need if we're genuinely going to save and rebuild our profession back from the brink. I spoke to Wes Streeting, Stephen Kinnock and senior civil servants yesterday. We are on the same page, but we still need those written assurances. So too do we need the special conference of LMCs, because this is still a fragile deal with a lot of hope and goodwill needed. 3 areas are going to require immediate ongoing work to determine our next steps. One's around online consultation excess, which is a red line for the Secretary of State. It's given him the headlines this morning that he wanted about fixing the front door to the NHS and ending the 8 a.m. scramble. It does not mean that we're going to have to find unlimited capacity for same-day urgent care. We have warned government repeatedly this policy risks leading diminished GP access and increased GP waiting lists. We've got a working group that's going to look at how this can be safely managed and what's needed from online platforms to safely mitigate the risks and manage the demand and capacity mismatch. If we aren't there by the 1st of October, then we'll need to return to the negotiating table. Number 2, GP Connect. The plan is for NHS registered pharmacists to gain access to write in the record for Pharmacy First. Their clinical decisions mean their liability. And for third parties to be private providers working under NHS contracts, but we need to be very careful around defining direct care. My sex worker patient who gets her ears microsuctioned at Specsavers is not going to want her full history shared. We're going to need to embed Caldecott principles here before we can be sure it's safe to switch on in October. The Joint GP IT Committee will be taking this forward with GPC England. And finally, GPs in Rs. Yes, it's still crap. It was NHS England's red line, and no, it's not improved. Do you want it to improve? We want money going into core so that more GPs can be recruited into practices as salaried GPs and partners, not spread across God knows how many practices and 50,000 patients. There's now a single Rs pot. Split it equally between your practices. Spend it on the roles you need. If you decide in the future that you want to restructure your teams on the back of this, then please follow strong HR principles and sound employment law. The BMA can and will help, but just take stock first and don't rush. The money. The headline money is helpful. It's 889 million. 88% of that is going into practice baselines. And then there's the 80 million around advice and guidance on top, all in 1 year. That 969 million headline in 1 year compares very well to a very similar number that was spread across the 5 years in the PCN-DES. But the big deal is a new substantive contract. So what does this mean for collective action? Well, much of the collective action menu will be superseded if 25-26 goes as planned. So we'll need to update it, reframe it and consolidate it around safe working guidance principles, which have been our policy for the past decade, which is still our policy. And local contracts and commissioning gaps, where your LMC is vital in galvanising collective bargaining. We're no longer in dispute with government, but that cannot and should not get ICBs who are perpetuating these commissioning gaps off the hook, so we shall shift our focus accordingly. When you drill down to an average practice, assuming a Cahill of 1.0, assuming an average list size of just over 10,000, you're looking at an additional £9.40 per patient. Now, we reckon the budget pressures represent in the ballpark of just under £3 per patient, so let's not get carried away. The corrected SFE reimbursements erosion is great to hire locums and get cover. The increased £2 on childhood IMS is welcome, but we need proper contract change because the 2004 GMS contract is broken. QOF, yeah, it's much simpler, but it will be quite tough. But it has been modelled to correct for deprivation, and there are other minor little bits of flexibility which will be really welcome and which we will explain in due course. So, ultimately, this is a promising start. We are on the train towards recovery. We are not yet at the destination. In fact, we are miles off, but at least we are now finally heading in the right direction with a government that is listening and a government that is acting on what we've said. Enjoy your weekends and we'll speak soon.